Did you know that before 1853, most stories about American slavery were written by white authors? Then Frederick Douglass published his autobiography, and suddenly readers encountered a completely different truth. Today, we're exploring critical race theory in literature, how a single story can shatter decades of assumptions, and how looking at race in literature isn't just about who's in the story, but who gets to tell it, who publishes it, and who decides what becomes a classic. Think about this. When Toni Morrison won the Nobel Prize in 1993, she was the first African American to do so in 92 years of the prize's history. That's not just a fun fact. It's a clue about how race shapes everything from what we write to what we consider great literature. Hi, my name is Moana, and this is my reading buddy Spike. And I'm a reading and writing lover who disliked English class as both a student and a teacher, and I am now documenting my journey of rediscovering my love for words. This is my last video of literary theories where I explain different ways of analyzing literature and reading more deeply. If you would like to see more in the series, please check out the link to the playlist in the description of this video. Today, we're diving into how race shapes storytelling, from who gets to tell stories to how those stories are told and received. Critical race theory and literature examines how race influences storytelling, power dynamics in literature, representation and voice, as well as systems of privilege in publishing. One key concept of this theory is counter-storytelling, which we're seeing a lot more of nowadays. These stories challenge dominant narratives, they tell overlooked stories, and they reveal different perspectives. A great example of this would be how slave narratives were rewritten in Toni Morrison's Beloved. Some of the questions that we need to ask include, who gets to tell stories? Whose perspective is centered? Who has publishing access, and whose stories are valued. For example, Richard Wright's Native Son challenged white narratives about Black experiences, showed harsh realities that publishers resisted, fought against expectations of uplift narratives, and changed how race was discussed in American literature. Some of the common tropes and stereotypes that we need to look for are stock characters, limited roles, and harmful representations. So if you've ever seen the movie Scary Movie, it's like the token Black guy who exists just to say specific phrases that are stereotyped as Black slang. Or it's also like when we see Asian women who are supposed to be these exotic objects of desire. Those are harmful stereotypes and tropes. We also have to look at systemic elements outside of books, such as access to education, publishing opportunities, literary recognition, and critical reception of stories. Language and power is also very important, where we look at who speaks, how they speak, what languages are valued, as well as translation politics. A really good example that I've been looking into lately is how it is so difficult to find literature from Okinawa. So I'm a quarter Okinawan, and I've been trying to find more literature from my own cultural heritage, and it's been almost impossible to find anything from Okinawa. I'm still doing more research on this, so I could be wrong, but I suspect that one of the reasons for this might be that when Okinawa was colonized by Japan, the people there were told that they were no longer allowed to speak their own language and instead had to speak Japanese. So if this really is the case, we can see how power silenced voices of a specific language. Something that I find really interesting about critical race theory is that it's become a much more controversial topic these past few years. I think it was in 2019 that I last taught English, and I was a public middle school teacher. I can still remember clearly at that time that there was a lot of talk about the US federal government possibly banning any literature that might spur any discussion of racism in the United States. I think one thing that we need to make clear is that critical race theory doesn't seek to make people feel bad or guilty about any kind of racism that exists, but instead, It is a way to look at how race is reflected in literature. So I think racism and critical race theory is a huge topic that could become a very long video by itself. And since today's video was just to explain one type of literary theory, I'm going to save that discussion for a future video. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. And if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to see more of my bookish content. Until next time, happy reading and see you soon.